Hello and welcome to this webinar entitled After 2 years of genocide in Gaza, where is the path to peace and Palestinian liberation? It is organized by the International Manifesto Group. I'm Radhika Desai. I am the convener of the International Manifesto Group and the moderator of this event. In the recently announced 20-point peace plan for Gaza, as with everything else Donald Trump does, show is mixed with reality, smoke with mirrors, cloaks with daggers, and apparent determination with vacillation. This has not only been true of his on-again, off-again tariffs, but also of his peacemaking efforts, and both have deadly consequences. In Trump's pursuit of a Nobel Peace Prize, the White House has been hurling out peace initiatives nearly as often as his tariffs. Practically all of them descend into farce. Remember the North Korea deal of his first term? Though the initial confrontation between Rocket Man and Dotard issued into a veritable love affair, and though they even led to a couple of summits that raised considerable hope among many serious observers, the end was a shambolic null. Trump had also promised to resolve the Ukraine conflict, indeed, to do so on the first day of his election, even before taking office. Well, Trump was elected and took office, but nearly a year since his election and more than 8 months in office, after giving Zelensky a dressing down that will be remembered for decades, and after the enigmatic Alaska summit with Putin, the best Trump can come up with is chiding and threatening Zelensky and Putin by turn. When the Gaza deal was published in full text last week, it was clear already that it was less a peace deal than a demand for Palestinian surrender. Palestinian surrender after almost a century of national liberation struggle. It was also clear that while most of the world, including China and Russia, seek a lasting peace on the principle of Palestinians governing Palestine, the US once again blocked yet another United States Security Council resolution, so that the only viable peace plan remains something concocted by Trump and Netanyahu, by Kushner and Blair, and it involves turning Gaza into an Anglo-American paradise for corporate profiteering. Still, given that after 2 years of relentless genocide, not only with bombs and drones and bullets, but also through starvation, the possibility of peace is too precious to be dismissed, even when it is a tiny needle hidden in a haystack of aggression. That is why most of the world received it with some optimism, if also caution, and that is why Hamas agreed to negotiate. Today, Sunday, the 5th of October, was supposed to be the deadline for all parties to agree. However, the situation remains extremely fluid. It's not at all clear whether the deadline will be strictly imposed or extended, or whether there will be an agreement, whether before or after the current deadline. In this situation, all we can do is identify the main moving parts in the situation so that we can keep our eye on them as it develops further. The first and possibly most fundamental is that on the Palestinian side, the issue is national liberation, something they have been fighting for, as I've said already, for a century, and not just since the 7th of October, 2023. Meanwhile, as a settler state, Israel is fighting to keep its ill-gotten territory and expand it. More immediately, the principal points to bear in mind are, at least to my mind, the following. That while Israel is supposed to have stopped bombing Gaza, it is widely reported, including in the mainstream Western press, that under one excuse or another, Israel has continued the bombardment of Gaza City, and more widely. That Palestinian resistance remains resilient, still fighting, still making life difficult for the IDF. And this resilience is probably the principal reason for Israel to even consider this peace deal, even though it is more or less a demand for Palestinian surrender. And that though the Israeli occupation, wishing to pursue Israel's war to the end of Palestine and Palestinians, has criticized the deal but stopped short of toppling the government, It remains to be seen how long this posture lasts, given that Ben-Gvir has already threatened that if the Hamas terrorist organization, these are his words, continues to exist after the release of hostages, his party will refuse support to the government which it considers the architect of national defeat and global disgrace. Further, just as there's pressure on the Israeli government to continue the war, there's also pressure from the citizenry to make peace and release the hostages, and pressure from the military to do the same, because they're not actually able to achieve their aims and are exhausted. And this puts into question what finishing the job, which Netanyahu keeps threatening, might actually mean. Cracks in the Israeli state indeed are opening wider, with Press TV reporting in the last day or two that the Israeli chief of intelligence, Ronan Bar, believes Netanyahu to be responsible for the failures of October the 7th, as they see it, and the obstacle to peace and the release of hostages. Further, given that demand for Palestinian surrender dressed up as a peace deal is already so biased in favor of Israel, it will not be too difficult for Netanyahu to succumb to any of these pressures by picking on any one of the many clauses and pronounce dissatisfaction, particularly as his opposition, which is determined to expand Israeli territory, mounts further pressure. That a major sticking point for Hamas is going to be the issue of whether and how exactly it gives up its weapons. It has already clarified that it will not give up what it considers defensive weapons and will only turn over offensive ones to a trusted body that will be to be retrieved should hostilities resume. Meanwhile, President Trump, as with his alleged peacemaking elsewhere, is already reduced, if not to threatening Netanyahu and Hamas in turn equally, then at least to pleading with Netanyahu and threatening Hamas in turn so that he can get his Nobel Peace Prize. In this webinar, therefore, we have some of the most important observers of the scene, and they will undoubtedly expand more on the key points that we've come up with to keep an eye on as this situation develops. So let's just go to them.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.